You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Wellesby, and in today's episode, number 61, How to Deal with Dieting Friends. Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin.
Hello, fatty. Are you alright? I'm alright. Are you alright? Alright. Good. Glad we're both alright. Today is, in the future, it's not, I'm going to say a lie right now. Today is 22nd of December. It's not. It's November the 13th where I am. I'm lying to you. But this podcast episode will come out on 22nd of December. And I have decided that me, Victoria Wellesby, is going to take some time off. Hurrah! I'm going to take some time off at the end of the year. So the Fierce Fatty team are taking 3 weeks off from this week right now until the end of the year. So because of that, I am going to be playing you 3 episodes that have previously aired that are very timely and really, really fucking good. They're really good. And so they need to be listened to again. And also, if you've already listened to all of the episodes, so you've had 60 episodes of Fierce Fatty Podcast. I'm telling you right now, you don't remember half of the shit that's been going on. Probably not even 10%. Probably not. You probably don't even know what my name is, even if you've listened to all the episodes. Listening to these replays, you probably will remember just, a small bit of what I'm talking about. So if you're like, replay, boring. But no, you're still going to get a lot out of it. And so listen to the replays because I've handpicked them. As the best, most timely episodes. So this episode, How to Deal with Dieting Friends. Ooh, Nelly. So it's the end of the year. And who knows when you're listening to this, a few days before a family gathering, perhaps you're at a family gathering and you're like, I need some fat goodness because your relatives have been like, oh, you've got fat. Why aren't you married? Why are you so horrible? Or whatever. And you're like, I need some fatty goodness. And you listen to this podcast and yes, good idea. So this podcast is really important for right now and for the rest of your life because we're always going to come across people who are dieting, who say bigoted shit, who hate fat bodies, who think it's appropriate to be like, oh, you're fat, and you'll be like, no shit, Sherlock, well done for noticing that I have a body. And how do we deal with those things? So, in this episode, I'm going to talk about that. And I don't know, I didn't listen to the end of this episode previously, but I think that I mentioned a song, a Christmas song, written by the incredible, Reagan Chastain. And I just want to sing you a little bit of this song because it is 100% relevant to this episode. And so you can just hum this song if you're around people who are talking about diets and it's the holiday times, and you can know what the real lyrics are. So the lyrics are, the song is "Oh Christmas Tree," but these are the fatty lyrics to the song. So let me sing it to you. So Reagan Chastain wrote these lyrics. Oh boundaries, you help me deal with family. Oh boundaries, you help me deal with family. Don't talk about my weight or food. Why can't you see it's hella rude? Oh boundaries, you help me deal with family. Oh boundaries, you help me deal with family. You know I love my family, but I will leave if you fat shame me. Oh boundaries, you help me deal with family. And there are so many renditions of this song. So go and look at, just Google "Oh Boundaries." And there's a really good version from Jeanette DePatty, who's like an opera singer. So you can kind of be humming that song when, you know, your Aunt Mildred is like, oh, have you heard about the new keto diet or whatever it is? You're like, oh, boundaries. Shut up. Yeah, so let's do this episode.
Around this time, we tend to spend a lot of time with family or people we don't see that often. And so this podcast episode is going to be super beneficial because we're talking about how to deal with people when they're talking about diets, when they're talking about, oh my God, I just started this new keto thing and I've lost 7,000 pounds in 12 minutes and it's amazing. You should do it because you're so fat and things like that. Hopefully you don't have relatives or friends who say those exact things to you, but you never know. So this podcast is all based on a question that I got from a listener. And so the question is, what can I say to my thin or thinner than me friends when I feel offended or annoyed by their negative food talk or when they blame moods on sugar? So that is from Eliza. And we're going to get deep into what to do when that happens. Because it's a big one, right? When we've decided that we don't want to diet, we don't want to be around people who are talking about that shit. Okay, so this question from Elisa is a really great question. I get asked this a lot, and it is very difficult. I gotta tell you, this was one of the last things that I was able to do was to respond in the way that felt good when people were talking about their diet. But since I started doing that, it's been a lot easier, and it is actually one of the cornerstones of me having higher self-esteem, of me having a deep sense of self-worth. And so the answer, in short, we can do this whole episode with one word. Let me just read the question again. And I'm going to give you the one word answer. And then I'm going to explain better than just one word. The question again is, what can I say to my thin or thinner than me friends when I feel offended or annoyed by their negative food talk or when they blame moods on sugar? From Elisa. So the one word response is boundaries. Boundaries. If you said to me, if I asked this question years ago, and someone said boundaries, I'd be like, nope. Boundaries, out of here. No thanks. What is this? No, not setting boundaries. No. Because I used to think about boundaries was that they were these horrific conversations where you'd have to be like, so this is how I'm feeling. And then the person would be like, fuck you piece of shit. How dare you say something to me? And then I would be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it would just go terribly, and there was no point. And, I was too scared to even speak up and say how I was thinking and feeling anyway. That was my thoughts on boundaries. But let me share what boundaries actually are. So personal boundaries are guidelines, rules or limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe and permissible ways for other people to behave towards them and how they will respond when someone passes those limits. So that is from Wikipedia, defining what personal boundaries are. And so in super simple layman's terms, it's like, say, if you live in a house or an apartment, the walls of your abode, of where you live, they are literal walls that say to people, this is my space. And so imagine if you were just hanging out in your living room watching a TV show and someone just walked in and they're like, all right, how's it going? I'm just going to make myself a cup of tea. You'd be like, what the fuck are you? Who are you? Get out of here. You'd probably be like, oh my God, they're going to rob me or whatever. But in this ridiculous example, let's pretend you knew they weren't. And they'll just like, I'm just going to make a cup of tea. I'm going to make myself a sandwich as well and get cozy on the sofa with you. And this is not someone that you want in your house. You would most likely say to them, get out, go to your own house and make your own sandwich. I'm watching TV on my own, thank you. And it would be really easy for you to usher them out of the house and lock the door and be like, what the heck? What happened there? But in our normal day-to-day life, we have these boundaries that are invisible, limits where we feel like it's okay for people to go and for the things that they say, and people cross them. And instead of reacting in a way to keep ourselves safe, which is lots of different ways that you could do that, we instead do the equivalent of random stranger walking into our house, says, oh, I'm just going to make a cup of tea and make myself a sandwich, put my feet up. Can you give me a foot rub? And what a lot of the time we do is we just say, oh, okay. But secretly inside, we're like, who the fuck is this motherfucker? What do you mean foot rub? What does he think that I'm a slave? Am I his servant? What the hell? But on our outside attitude is, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't mind. And I used to do this all the time. So people used to cross my boundaries all the time. And I would never say anything to them. And you might be thinking, well, what's wrong with that? So let me read you a little bit from positivepsychology.com. Our boundaries might be rigid, loose, somewhere in between, or even non-existent. A complete lack of boundaries may indicate that we don't have a strong identity or are enmeshed with someone else. Healthy boundaries can serve to establish one's identity. Specifically, healthy boundaries can help people define their individuality and can help people indicate what they will and will not hold themselves responsible for. So that's from psychology, positivepsychology.com. And so healthy boundaries is good for us as humans. If you don't have healthy boundaries, you will have unhealthy and unfulfilling relationships, and you'll struggle to make deep connections. You'll carry resentment and anger, and you'll just be quietly pissed off with people who you probably like or you love and they love you, but you are seething inside because they said that thing and they keep saying that thing. And why do they keep doing it? It's so annoying. But have you ever told them that it's inappropriate or annoying or upsetting to you or makes you mad? Have you? Maybe you have. And if you have, then we're going to talk about that as well in this episode. The way that I see it now is that setting boundaries really is a gift, really, truly. Now, what I mean with that is that I would, like I said, keep people, not tell them how I was really feeling. And then I'd go back and talk to another friend about them being like, oh, can you believe they did this and said that? Oh, what a bitch. And would never say how I was really feeling. And so therefore that person could never get close to me, truly get close to me, because I had put up this wall of not communicating what I really thought and felt. And say if this person genuinely wants to be my friend, they're doomed. They can never really be close to me. And so by saying to them, hey, that thing that you said really made me feel like XYZ, you're giving them the opportunity to get to know the real you, to love you, to build connection and trust. And it's also the opportunity to work out who is not right to be in your life, depending on how they respond. And so for me, boundaries in the past have been very, very scary. And still, it can be scary for me to set boundaries because you don't know how the other person is going to react. Now, in my experience, most people react like average human beings. And if you say, hey, that thing is upsetting me, they say, oh, I didn't know. Okay, well, I'll stop saying it, or whatever it is they say. So I will go into what to say exactly as well. So don't worry, I'm not just going to be like, just tell them. I'm going to give you some things to say. So how you react to a situation like this, your friends talking about dieting and sugar and all that sort of bullshit, is completely up to you. It's your decision and how you react, okay? Brené Brown said, the most compassionate people are also the most boundaried. So the way that you react is totally up to you, but recognize there's going to be ways that you can react that's going to serve you better in the long term than other ways that you could react. So when you're having negative feelings when you're around someone, it's probably because they are encroaching on your personal values. All right. So we all have values. You might not know your values to say them out, like my values are this, but we all have values, about how we want to behave, what we value in ourselves, what we value in others. And everyone's values are different, right? And so your friends talking about their diets, it's probably pushing on one of your values or many of your values, and that is why it's making you have a negative reaction. So for example, if someone started talking about dieting, a friend started talking about dieting around me, it would encroach on my personal values of authenticity and curiosity. And so these are two of my values. So authenticity is it's important for me to be authentic. And so in that moment, if a friend was talking about their diet and I didn't say something, it would not be authentic of me. Unless the situation is, it's just a random person. They're like, oh, diet. I would just be like, whatever, see you later. But if it was someone I cared about and I wanted to establish a good relationship, my authentic reaction would be like, no, thanks. I'm not into dieting. And as well, curiosity. So it's important for me to be curious, and it's important for those around me who I prefer to surround myself with people who are curious, who are interested in learning about society and being the best person they can be. And for me, I see dieting as really old-fashioned, like old. It doesn't feel it. This is the world I'm in now, right? I just find it so bizarre that when someone says that they're going on a diet, I'm just like, aren't we in 2019 now? Like, it's almost 2020. Aren't we over diets? Doesn't everyone know they don't work? And so it would be encroaching on my curiosity, because they wouldn't have necessarily displayed curiosity to understand about diet culture bullshit and things like that. And so that's why it might feel bad for me. It might feel bad for you for other reasons, but understand it's encroaching on something that is core about you as a person. And so it's important. It's really, really illuminating something important, and you're having a reaction because it's a part of your identity of who you are. And so you can do a few things. So here are your options. There's many, many, many options. You could do anything you want. But here, in a nutshell, here are the things that you can do. So one of the options you could do is do nothing. Listen to your friends talk about their, we're eating worms that we found in the garden diet and rubbing poo onto our faces, and that's our new diet, and it's great, and we've lost 50,000 pounds in the last 12 seconds. And you can go, yeah, great. Oh, sounds interesting. Yeah. And in your brain, you're like, I can't fucking believe this. You're eating worms. You're putting poo on your face. What are you doing? Don't you know this won't work? Don't you know that diets are bullshit? Or, God, won't you stop talking about this rubbish? It's so boring. So that is what your brain is saying. But your mouth is saying nothing. And your head is maybe nodding. Or your mouth is saying, oh, yeah, maybe I'll try that. Or whatever. And so that is an option. That's an absolutely viable option. And you might choose to do that because it's not safe to say anything, because you don't give a shit about the person. So, for example, here is an example of me not doing anything, or actually kind of doing something, but then choosing not to do anything about a boundary that had been crossed. So here's a story about how not doing something worked for me. And so not doing something is a good option. Okay, so one time it was Christmas and we went round a friend's house, me and my then boyfriend, and we decorated gingerbread houses, and it was all very Christmassy. And then more people started coming around, and people were drinking and stuff. And we started playing a card game. And we were all sat around in the living room playing this card game, having the best time. And one of the guests, there was another guest there. I had said, I got this card and it had read something about someone bitch slapping someone. And being a Brit, I didn't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe Brits do know. But I said, what does bitch slapping mean? And immediately, this person, she jumped out of her seat. She straddled me while I'm sitting on my seat and slapped me across the face. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm not one for, people touching me, slapping me. Like, I'm not into, I don't think anyone is really, but it was really a personal boundary, like alarms are going off. Physically, she's in my space. She sat on my lap and then she just slapped me. And she was like, that is what a bitch slap is. And then she started laughing. And immediately I said, don't ever touch me again. And you can see everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe she just did that. And I can't remember what happened next, but I think we carried on with the game. And my friend who was sat next to me was like, wow, you responded so well to that. And I just felt uncomfortable with this whole situation. And so I said to my partner at the time, I said, let's leave. And so we left. A few weeks or months later, we bumped into this person with her partner. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. Because she wasn't a friend of mine. She was like friends of friends. And she was like, hey, how are you doing? And I kind of made small talk, but I had already decided at that point I was not going to pursue any type of relationship with her, and also wouldn't go to any events that she was at also, because I didn't want anything like that happening again. And we kind of made small talk, and then we left. And as we left, she turned around and slapped me on the bum. And like, so, I get like sometimes playful pats on the bum, between friends, it would be fine. Although my friends don't hit me on the bum, but she properly slapped me on the bum. And even if it was soft, I had previously told her, don't ever touch me again. And I made a decision in that moment, instead of being like, taking it to the next level. And the next level would be to use more of my voice, to say, hey, I've told you, do not touch me. Okay, so that would be the next level. Because, the previous level was me saying, do not touch me, in a strong voice. And in that moment, I decided, you know what? I'm not interested in reasserting my boundary with her. I will never see her again. Hopefully I don't bump into her in the street. And if I do, I decided I will not talk to her at all. Like, I'm not going to make small talk with her. And so in that moment, I decided to do nothing, just walk on and be like to my partner, can you believe it? She just smacked my bum. What the hell? So she had poor personal boundaries herself, because she thought it was okay to get into someone else's personal boundaries. We didn't really know each other. We maybe met a couple of times before that party. So that's an example of doing nothing. Now, say if I wanted to be friends with her, doing nothing in that moment, or following on, like we could have had a conversation and I could have been like, listen, you slapped me in the face. Why I'd want to be friends with someone like this, I wouldn't, but you slapped me in the face, you hit my bum. I know that you were trying to be playful and funny or whatever you were trying to do, but that is not okay with me. And I would establish a boundary moving forward. But because I didn't want to be friends with her, because clearly her boundaries were not well established and in place, of knowing that that was not appropriate, I decided to let it go and just be like, wow, that was a person with bad boundaries that I met. So there's kind of good and bad on doing nothing. You have to work out, do you want to be friends with that person moving forward? If you do, then you're going to want to set a boundary. If you don't, you can just let it go and be like, whew, don't want to be friends with that person. If you are going to be friends with them and you don't set a boundary, it's going to build resentment, you're going to get angry, and it's going to damage your mental health. And we don't want friendships that damage our mental health. Sometimes shit happens, right? But overall, we want to have friendships that it goes both ways, of being joyful and filled with love and all that type of juicy stuff. Okay, so the next thing that you can do is remove yourself from the situation. And so this could also be something where you're not actually saying anything, but you remove yourself physically from the room. And so say you're, in the living room talking with your family and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this new diet. You can be like, I'm just going to pop to the toilet. I'm just going to pop to the washroom, or just walk away and just situate yourself somewhere else. That is another thing that you can do. You can also remove yourself in regards to removing yourself from the friendship, from the relationship. So cutting the relationship off. And so you're removing yourself from their life. That is another option. But if, say in the family example where you're just going to walk away, you will have had to decide, is that the right thing for me in regards to my own mental health? Am I actually going to be seething afterwards and be like, I can't believe it, they ruined Christmas by talking about this? Would it be better for you to actually say something? Or is it, weird Aunt Doris and there's no point in saying anything to her, so you don't want any drama, you're just going to walk away and it's not going to affect you that much because you've not told, your weird aunt that, putting cabbage up your bum is not actually something that's going to help you lose weight. So that is another option. Another option is to set a boundary casually. And so you can be playful with boundaries. It doesn't always have to be serious and sitting down and being like, you hurt my feelings, although it can be, and that is also beneficial. But you could do something like, if your friends are talking about diet bullshit, you can do something like, hey, you lot, don't remember diet talk is so 2016. Can we not? And kind of make a joke out of it and being like, oh my God, diet talk is so boring. Oh, yeah. Something that my sister does to me, and it's hilarious. Sometimes, say if I'm talking about something boring, she'll just start snoring and close her eyes and make her head nod off. And it's so funny. So I'll be halfway through a sentence being like, oh, did you know, blah, blah, blah. And then she'll just go, and then we'll just both burst out laughing. And it's kind of a nice way to say, like, shut up, you're boring me now. And it's nice, right? Because we're both, neither one of us is offended. Sometimes I'll do that to her if I can remember to try and be funny. But it's not an aggressive, like, stop doing that, you're making me feel sad or mad or whatever. Not that you would a lot of the times be doing that anyway when you're setting a boundary. So is there anything that you can come up with which might be more lighthearted to navigate their behavior? And you could say, hey, this is so like, oh my God, this is so 2016, like, oh, and they might not listen to you and they might ignore you. And at that point, you might decide that you want to set a clear boundary. And so saying something like, oh, hey, diet talk is so 2016 is not really a very clear boundary, but you're kind of throwing it out there that you're not okay with this, but it's not explicit, right? And so a clear boundary would be something like, here is a story that I want to share with you about a boundary that I set. So I was working at this company maybe, 6 years ago. And I was brought in as a talent acquisition manager. And it was a startup company. And so, there were desks everywhere. You didn't have your own office. And so I was opposite this guy who was in a different department. And he wasn't a manager. From the very first day that I came into this company, he was like sussing me out. And like from the day one, he was like, manager, huh? Well, how did you get that job? And I was like, in my head, I was like, what, motherfucker? What do you mean? How did I get this job? Because I'm a fucking badass bitch is why. But first day at a new company, you don't want to be like throat punching people. And so I would just let it go. And he was just a massive bellend, basically. He would be rude to everyone and make them feel really uncomfortable. He was very domineering, and we were in an open plan environment. He would just be always speaking up and telling people, being a dick. And one time, and I would be going home and saying to my then boyfriend, I can't believe this guy. He said this to me today and he said that to me today. Oh my God, this is blah, 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 blah. And then one day he said to me, you should be ashamed of yourself. I can't remember what it was about, but I just remember that line. You should be ashamed of yourself for something. And I was like, nah, I'm done. And so I had a conversation with my therapist and I was like, oh, I'm done. What do I do? Oh my God, I hate this guy. I want to like have a fist fight with him. And we decided, okay, we need to set a boundary. And so the next day at work, or whenever it was the next day after the therapist appointment, I just casually through the day, I said to him, hey, do you mind if we go to the back? The back was like the only private place, like literally some corridor. Do you mind if we go to the back for a quick chat? And in front of the whole room, he was like, ooh, Victoria wants to take me to the back for a quick chat. She's probably going to try and have sex with me. This guy was such a knob. Just even that, he was a knob. And I was just like, oh, fucking. And so he's like, okay, we'll go to the back. And so we went to the back. And so what I did was I shared with him my story. And so I wanted to share with him a little bit about my story so he understood where I was coming from. And I wanted to make this about me and not about him. Because if I made it about him, I thought that it would not be the right strategy. And so I said, hey, I just wanted to share something with you about me that you might not know. And so in my, I was homeless and I was abused and, my dad was an alcoholic and blah, blah, blah. All of the story, which you can hear in episode 2 if you're curious and you haven't heard it. And then I said, and so when you say things to me like this, XYZ, you should be ashamed of yourself or whatever, it's very difficult for me to hear. And it reminds me of being in those situations which were not good for me. So do you think that you could avoid saying those types of things to me in the future? He was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I won't do that anymore. Can we hug it out? We had a hug and we kind of ended on a happy note. We went back to the office. He was like, oh, she didn't try and have sex with me. Idiot. And never more, not once ever did he say anything to me ever again that was rude. In fact, he was very pleasant to me. I wouldn't say he was nice because he was a knob. He was a complete knob to everyone else, but not to me because I told him in a nice way, listen up here, motherfucker, I'm standing for your fucking bullshit. Now, I didn't have to give him any kind of backstory. I could just say, can you stop saying that thing? But because we'd been working together for probably a few months and understanding his personality, I thought that was the best way to do it. And so it doesn't have to be a big sit-down thing. You can just say if your friends are talking about their diet, you can just say, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I've actually started on this journey of repairing my relationship with food and healing myself because we live in this diet culture and it's really damaged the way that I relate to food. And something that I would like to do is remove all of the diet talk out of my life. And I was curious if you could help me with this. And your friend will probably say, yes, I'd love to help you. And you would say, great. The way that you could help me is when you're around me, can you not mention about diets or food or sugar or any type of moralizing around food? And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. This is so helpful for me. If you could do that, thank you so much. And your friend will probably be like, yeah, this is great. I'm going to help you. And hopefully, because they're a good friend, they do want to help you. And then it's true. This is what's happening. You are repairing your relationship. And hearing that type of stuff is difficult. Even now, like if I hear stuff like that, I'm just like, oh God, no. It is damaging towards my mental health. And so you're giving your friend the opportunity to help you continue with your journey and help you grow. Now, your friend could be like, what? What's your problem? I'm not doing that. And you know what that is? That is beautiful if they say that, because it means they're not the type of friend that you want in your life. Unless you want to continue working on this. And I don't know what you could do. If a friend doesn't want to respect a boundary, then they're no friend. Really, they're no friend. And the same goes for family. Even, people very close to you, even your parents, if they can't accept a boundary, then, that you're going to have a boundary. It's because they have poor boundaries and they are not the type of person that you want in your life. So you're going to do this first thing and it's going to be scary, or it might not. You're going to say to your friends, you're going to set a boundary in some way, if that's what you decide to do. Again, you don't have to. 90, who knows, I'm making up percentages, chances are they are going to break that boundary, especially if it's something that they've been doing for a long time and it's something that's in their life and it's something that has been okay around you in the past, like talking about diets. Before, you might have engaged in diet talk. I know when I was dieting, I was like the first one in there being like, oh my God, did you know that air has 17 calories? And so we should stop breathing so much because then we won't be fat. Oh my God, right? I'd be the one. And so it would be absolutely normal and okay for my friends to be like, oh my God, did you hear about this? And I would previously have loved that conversation. And so if I all of a sudden came out of the blue and said, hey, I'm not cool with that anymore, they would probably forget or not take me seriously. Okay. And so this is where the hard work comes in. I know that conversation was hard, but what you need to do is when they slip up, and they probably will because they're a human being, and they're not slipping up, most likely they're not slipping up to be a dick. Sometimes they might be, but generally it's just part of their brain. It's their normal way to speak, and they need help in remembering what your boundary is. And so you have to say, hey, remember on Wednesday we spoke about XYZ? And just make it light. You don't have to be like, you motherfucker, you went over my boundary and I hate you and let's have a fist fight outside. Just like, oh, hey, remember that? And they'll probably be like, oh shit, yeah, sorry. And you'll be like, yeah, no problem. Anyway, did you see that new Netflix show? Or they might react in a negative way. Oh, he's still going on about this? And what is that? That is a gift. It's telling you something about them as a person. Do you want a person like this in your life who cannot respect your boundaries? No, you do not. Of course, you can work on that stuff, right? And this might go on, depending on the relationship, it may go on for a long time. So as an example, my mum used to talk about kind of weight stuff a lot. And many years ago, I said, hey, I'm not down with talking about this anymore. Can you not talk about fat as a negative? Yes, no problem. I won't do that. Now, up until that point, it would have been literally decades of us having the relationship where it was okay to talk about that stuff. And because I wanted and want a relationship going on with my mum, when she would slip up, and she wasn't doing it because she was like, I know what's going to really fuck off Victoria today when I talk about this person's diet. This will really get her. And so when she did, I would say, hey, remember? And she'd be like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. And the incidences would go from quite often to less and less and less. And now there still might be something, but she catches herself and she'll say, oh, not that's good. Like dancing, what is it called? That dancing show that's on BBC if you're in the UK. Dancing with celebrities. Oh, I don't know. You can let me know. Come dance with me. Come dance with me. Come dance with us. Come dance with me. Anyway, and she said, oh, one of the celebrities, he's lost like loads of weight since the start of the show because he's doing so much dancing. And I was like, and she could tell, she's like, oh yeah, that was a weight thing. I was like, oh, he must be really hungry or whatever. And so it's less and less now, to the point where it's not really even an issue. Now, someone else who was behaving like that, if I wasn't necessarily wanting a relationship with them, I might have decided that that was not okay for me. And whatever you decide is best for you is absolutely fine. It's okay to cut off relationships with people who we've been told is not okay to cut off relationships with, like close family members, parents. It's not your job to be in a toxic relationship. That's not okay. And so now the way that I express boundaries can really vary from day to day. So on Instagram, I have a boundary of I don't let O words, obese and overweight, be on my Instagram, because it's a fat positive place and those words are slurs. And so when someone uses an O word on my Instagram in my comments, what I'll normally do is if they're if I can clearly see that they're not a troll, and if they say something like, oh my God, yeah, blah, 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 obesity or whatever, I'll message them and comment back and be like, yeah, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. By the way, we don't use O words in a fat positive space like this because they're slurs, and maybe a heart or something to show that I'm not angry. And that is me setting a boundary. I don't want to see those words come up in my feed on my page. That is my boundary. Now, sometimes people say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize. Yeah, that's fine. Someone said to me yesterday, why are they slurs? And for me, that kind of pushed my boundary a bit too much because they were asking me to educate them for free. Emotional labor. And it's okay if you want to, but you don't have to. And at that time, I was like, nah, I don't want to educate this person. So I just said, Google can tell you, which is true, literally. Google can tell you, like, I'm not here to educate you. Although sometimes I might want to educate you because sometimes I do want to, continue that conversation. But yesterday I wasn't in the mood. And especially because they were a thin person, or their profile suggested that they were a thin person. I kind of thought, they don't seem to be valuing my labor in this exchange, because they weren't like, oh my God, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. Like, could you maybe explain a bit more about that? Then I'd probably feel more inclined to explain to them my point of view about that. So I could also decide to just delete the comment. If someone just used the word, I could just be like, you know what, they've crossed the boundary. And my response is to delete the comment. It's my choice. It's my page, right? And so when someone does cross your boundary and you've clearly stated your boundaries and they've done it, they could just do it once and you could say, you know what, that's enough. I'm done. Or they could do it a few times and you can be like, okay, that's it. I'm done. You need to do something when they cross your boundary. You can't just be like, oh, well, because it's a pointless boundary. If there's no consequence, think about kids. When you're like, hey, don't do that thing. If you do, then this thing's going to happen. Something negative is going to happen if you don't bite your baby brother. And then they bite their baby brother and you're like, I told you not to bite your baby brother and you did. And they're like, There's no, reason why they wouldn't want to do it again. Baby brother tastes nice or whatever it is they're doing. There has to be a consequence, and then they can learn that behavior is unwanted, and adults are just the same. And so the consequence could be that you're just like, you know what, I'm going to leave actually. I'm not mad, but I'm just not into this conversation, so I'll check you out next time. So you could just leave. You could just go into a different room, say if you're with your family, or you can say, hey, I'm going to take some space for you because you've broken that boundary again. And I'm not feeling good about this. And so I'm going to take some space for you, and you can decide I'm not going to talk to them for a week or whatever, take whatever space you need from them. Or you can say, you know what, this relationship's not for me. And you could end the relationship. So the decision is yours, but you need to have something in place when they do cross your boundary. Because if you don't say anything, you might as well have never had that boundary conversation to begin with. It would have been a waste of your breath. And it's actually a negative thing. If you might as well definitely not have said anything, because they know, okay, when this person says, hey, this is really serious for me, this is important, that you're not really being serious. And it means that they can disrespect you even more. And we want to have relationships where, we're mutual respect and kindness and all that type of stuff. And so with boundaries, I used to always think, oh my God, people are going to explode in my face because of my past and being abused. That it was my reality of people exploding if I ever asked for anything reasonable. And so I had to practice this. I had to start small and say, oh, hey, do you think that you could, I'd be like, oh, do you think maybe you could, and it'd be something tiny, like, oh, could you maybe not wear your shoes in my house, maybe? Or I'm sorry, don't hate me. and practice, and then move up to the bigger stuff and the scary stuff. And honestly, it feels so fucking good to say, oh, hey, we don't do that, or we don't say that, or, you know, I'm not into that. And, you know, or make a joke about something to say, hey, I'm not cool with that, or some comment to show that, you know, this is not okay with me. It really does build your self-esteem, because then you start to realize you are so powerful. You really are. And think about the people who you know in your life who have good boundaries. They're probably a lot more confident, and you probably respect them more, versus the people who have terrible boundaries and who say yes to everything, who talk about people behind their back because they're so mad with them because they don't ever stand up to them or set a boundary. Right? So that is my answer. You had the short answer, boundaries, and then the long answer, which is, ooh, boundaries. So Elisa, I hope that helped. And I hope that it helped others who are tuning in to today's episode. And I want to end each episode with a little fact about me, so you can get to know me a little better. So today's fact is about my favorite music, my favorite artiste. So currently my favorite is Beyonce. I love Beyonce's music, and I think Beyonce is just badass and amazing. I love that at Coachella she had fat dancers. She is pushing ideas which are more forward thinking, which I love. I hope she goes to the extreme with fat acceptance and really goes full out versus having small fats as dancers. And she does something like what Miley Cyrus has done in her recent video. She had a model on there who is an infini fat. And it's amazing. I'll link to that in the show notes so you can see that video. And it's like 3 seconds of glorious, super fat, naked Shailong fan. Her name is Angelina, and she is an angel, I'm telling you, the model. So I hope Beyonce does something like that, gets really even more political with her fat positivity. And I don't think she's actually fat positive, because I watched a documentary about her run up to Coachella and how she was like, I need to lose weight, and she was eating like nothing and these intense workouts all day long. She'd be working out, and then she'd be going and dancing and doing the routines. And I just thought, oh my God, Beyonce, I wish that you realize that your body is just incredible for what it does for you, and you don't need to also be eating nothing. She was eating, I can't remember what it was, but hardly anything. So that's my current favorite. And I grew up listening to Destiny's Child on my cassette. One of my favorite first cassettes was Writings on the Wall, Destiny's Child. And I would listen to that in my Walkman and fall asleep, and the batteries would drain. But as a kid, also, if you're British, you know this band. I loved E17 and Brian Harvey. You know what? I loved E17 because they were the bad boys. And then the Take That, which was the other band, they were like the good boys. And I was always like, no, man, I'm a bad girl. Like as a 10-year-old. So bad. I like this boy band. And Brian Harvey was my favorite. And I would like make out with the poster in my room of Brian. Years later, actually, Brian Harvey ran himself over with his own car. So, have fun Googling that fact. Very strange. So there's my little fact about me. A reminder, go and write a review on wherever you can, on Apple Music or Stitcher. Take a screenshot of that review before you send it and send it off for approval, because it takes time for them to go through. And send that screenshot to me, Victoria@fiercefatty.com, and you will get an audio version and a ebook version of my best-selling book as a thank you, and share on social media that you're listening to this episode, and I will put you in to for a draw to win a Fierce Fatty mug. And we've got a download that goes along with this episode, and that is at fiercefatty.com/006 fiercefatty.com/006 for the show notes. And you can also go there and there'll be a button for you to ask a question. So if you have a question that you want me to answer on the show, and I think it's something that others will benefit from me asking, which your questions are always great, and it's something related to fat positivity, to anti-diet, to intuitive eating, changing your negative thoughts, all that type of stuff. Don't ask me, how to create an umbrella or something, because I don't know the answer to that. So if it's something that I can contribute on, I will definitely include it in an episode. So go to the show notes, www.fiercefatty.com/006, because it's episode 6. And I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Have an incredible day, my Fierce Fatty. Mwah. See you soon. This podcast is brought to you by Fierce Fatty Academy. Fierce Fatty Academy is my incredible and life-changing e-course, which is only available to enroll in sporadically throughout the year. Fierce Fatty Academy is all about stepping into your power and knowing for certain that you are a fierce, strong, worthy human in all your body's glory. I will teach you my secrets for changing your limiting negative self-beliefs about your fat body and empower you to finally feel in control around food, knowing you'll never diet again. Fierce Fatty Academy is open for enrollment on November the 5th, 2019, but for a matter of days only. For more details and to get on the wait list, go to www.fiercefatty.com/academy. That's www.fiercefatty.com/academy.